Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome from Munich, Germany, to all of you joining us. This is a very special webinar today and jointly hosted by four offices located on the West Coast and the East Coast of US and London and in Germany. And it's a very nice event, a very special event, and we would like to invite Oliver von Malm to share about his project, his social business project, Start Somewhere, and talk about sustainable building materials for informal settlements. But before Oliver takes us to Africa, let me try to shed some light why we meet here and who we are. And on the next slide, we will see and get some of the background. Basically, the four offices who organize that jointly have been all the pleasure to work together on a project in Sydney, the Atlassian Central in Sydney. We had the pleasure to work with Atlassian, a company based in Australia and Sydney. And I guess most of you have been using their software products directly or indirectly. And about 2017, 2018, Atlassian decided to build a new high-rise building in Sydney, a new headquarter for them. And the offices today who join had the opportunity to work together on this project. I um, it's worth and it's right to say that we had the great pleasure and privilege to work with Atlassian to develop a project reaching to very high sustainable aspiration, and that this opportunity working gave us the opportunity to work with many team members. And on the left hand side you see the sum of these involved, and I want to mention the four offices, which is for structure and facade, Eckersley or Gallagher. They are based in London and San Francisco. Shop architects, they are based on the East Coast in New York. BVN, they are architects. They have been working together on this project in Sydney. And EOC, EC3, with Edwin, an office based in Los Angeles. So we had the opportunity to work on the test design, so with some of the team members to work on the international competition and to start designing the project. And in about 2 years ago, we decided to hand in that jointly developed sustainable project to the Holcim Award for Sustainable Construction in the Asian Pacific region. And we had the great luck to win bronze in 2021. We have been meeting with the design team on the right hand side, and you see James, you see Edwin, Andreia, Lisa, and myself in Venice, and we had the great pleasure to be awarded with the bronze award in the Asian Pacific region, and also the commendation. 3 team members of the authors could not join, Rick, Njnotschka, and Corie, but I hope that they could join this talk today. No, Rick and Njnotschka will not join, they are in Australia. As a design team, then we decided, let's donate our prize money where it really matters. And that is the link to Oliver. And we know Oliver since many years. And when I first met him, he was talking about his idea to make the change in Africa through a construction method he was about to develop. And at the beginning, when I first heard that idea, I was saying, oh, wow, that sounds like a crazy idea, a big vision. But today, and that's the inspiring thing, he will show how much further he has pushed this idea and really, and in real projects which happened, which are standing there and which are used by people. But before, Oliver, I hand over to you. Thank you very much for giving this lecture. I just heard that you contracted COVID for the second time this weekend. So thank you very much for getting out of the bed and giving this lecture about your social business. The floor is yours. Please bring us to Africa and share about your inspiring project. Thank you, Oliver.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and thanks a lot for the introduction, Wolfgang. And of course, thanks to the Atlassian Tower Design team very much for this opportunity that you decided to donate the prize money to Start Somewhere, and also for the great interest of everybody who joined this event today. So yeah, let's say the story of Start Somewhere is a bit of a longer one, but I will just capture a little bit to how I got there from also being an architect to now running this social business. So basically the journey was a bit, when I was a student or after my bachelor thesis, I got to work for very renowned offices, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. So I was working for Njnotschka in Oslo and for Zaha Hadid in London and Beijing. And it was a great time. I learned great skills there. But then at some point, I left Beijing. I went to travel. I traveled through China, Pakistan, India, and then ended up somehow in Kenya. And as a backpack tourist, I first came there to Kibera Slum, which is the largest slum of East Africa. And I saw, as you can see here in this image, the second image on the lower row, what conditions schools were run there, how people lived there, and I decided to support those schools those days as a student, still not finished with my master's. I organized parties in university to fundraise a bit for food, a bit for salary, and then at some point I was asked by the people if I couldn't help them to build a two-story school structure, which kind of opened the idea to me, okay, well, I can finally help with my skill, not only by selling drinks. And I decided to develop rather a construction system instead of just planning a single building, because Kibera is a slum with about 1 million residents estimated. And I thought the impact must be bigger than just this one building that I may be able to build somehow. So I took this as my master thesis, and from there, well, that idea gained some interest also in industry. So a large player from industry caught interest, and it gave us the opportunity to develop this approach further to a product that I would like to then show you a little bit more later. But in general, what we want to do as Start Somewhere, as the social business, so we want to tackle a few of the prevailing issues that we have in the informal settlements. And we have a very high unemployment rate, and usually people only have day-to-day jobs as casual laborers. People live in really terrible, unsafe, unhealthy homes. Water is running through. Climatic conditions are really terrible under this sheet metal. And there's no secure land tenure. So basically, if the government decides to build a road, you just lose everything that you have. And we have developed a new kind of construction system that tries to deal a bit with those issues. So this material that you see here are concrete blocks, TwistBlocks we call them. And the idea is that those blocks can be manufactured in the slums by the people themselves, that we can easily build new homes, better homes for them. And then the challenge of the unsecure land tenure, we also try to tackle by a feature of the blocks, which is the fact that they can be dismantled to a certain extent. So if there's an eviction happening, you can just take your house with you. Otherwise, you would just lose everything that you have. So how does all of that work? Let me show a little video. Just so this is our block. It uses relatively little material, so a third of a solid wall. It is assembled completely without mortar, so it's just interlocking. So it's deconstructible, and you have full freedom to design with the very same block. You can just make straight and curved walls. It is produced in a workshop in the slum with just manual labor and very light machinery. And the intention is, so to say, that like this, the slums can change from inside. Here you see a bit how this bending works in reality. So that's not only a digital simulation, and how easily the blocks can be stacked on top of each other. And yeah, so that's the product. And here you see a few first built projects. Cool. Here we go. So yeah, the idea is to have those small-scale factories, or let's say adaptive scale factories, which can either be bigger or smaller depending on the budget and on the available space, because space is a very scarce resource within those informal settlements. And yeah, somehow this idea also brought us to receive the German Innovation Award together with the industry partner Perry. For the idea of bringing that business into the informal settlements. And yeah, to show a little bit how that manual production process is done, I'd like to just share another short video. So here we are. That's where our factory is, in the heart of Kibera. And here we just have the very simple materials, normal sand, normal pebbles, and electric concrete mixer, which is run by solar cell. People weighing very precisely the material. This is the formwork that we use for casting our blocks. And here you see Joseph demolding them, one of our employees. Yeah, and basically here, those 5 people working there have been having a permanent job since 2019 now, which is also something that doesn't really happen very often, because as I said, yeah, you just have casual day-to-day jobs, usually in Kibera. And just going back to sharing again the presentation. Good. So our ideas is so to say, just to illustrate this. So we create jobs in a factory in the slum where you don't need a lot of skilled labor, so you can learn how to produce these blocks within a week. That's the training that we provide as Start Somewhere also. Then those people producing the blocks, they distribute the blocks to the construction sites where people can also build without being like skilled masons, or with relatively little training. It's possible to start building our wall, because it's basically like playing Lego, more or less. You need a few skilled people to make the first row even. You need a few skilled people to bend the iron, because we still have some columns in the corners. But yeah, apart from that, you can work with a lot more casuals than you can work on normal construction sites. Yeah, and that's so far so good, but concept, of course, had to be proven. So, and I was asked to build a 2-story school building, so I, of course, still had to do that. And what you see here is the ground floor plan of this 2-story school that I had drawn. You see very small classrooms, but they are 1.5 times bigger than the existing ones. And yeah, well, if we had made them double the size, they would have just put a separation wall in between and made 2 out of it again. So yeah, space in the slum is just really a scarce resource. Yeah, and I was happy to really go and build this school And I had my ticket booked to Nairobi already as the architect supervising the site, and that was April 2020. And I guess you all remember the unhappy event that was taking place then. So I couldn't fly, and I decided to still build the school and coordinate everything via a video call from home with a project manager I had hired in Kenya. So with a Kenyan structural engineer who was on site, and yeah, placing those blocks according to very descriptive plans that I had then drawn. And I want to show you now with a video the result of it. So please look carefully at the transition of the drawn plan to the build result that you will just see in a minute. So there you see it. It's pretty much there. The advantage is I only had to count the blocks, so I didn't have to believe him. He measured right, so it's relatively good for video call coordination. Yeah, there you see the raw construction of the school. You see where it is located, and the second story, I-beams on top. Sorry. And yeah, you see Kibera in the background with still a lot for us to do. Going back to sharing the presentation. Yeah, so that school is now finished. Maybe a bit of a specialty is, as you see with the doors and the gate and the colors they applied here, that is all was all chosen by the users, by themselves, and also like this gate was just done by the local welding man, so to say. So I didn't design that. I didn't say, okay, you have to use this kind of door. Also, the big frame was was done by the people themselves. So with that construction, I kind of wanted to leave a bit space for them to also become creative, and I think that sort of increases the identification and the ownership of the building. So here you see also from outside how they made these yellow windows, and yeah, this kind of yellow part here, which it's a funny story actually. Just let me briefly share this. Once we completed the school, the government said, "Oh, you have to push in, and you have to be somehow half a meter more away from the road. That's why this little chunk here is cut out, that you see that yellow chunk." Yeah. So, well, we have to always be flexible in these settings. Yeah, then what is, of course, the goal is not only us building something. The bigger goal is that the people start building things themselves. And this is probably my favorite project so far, because this is like probably the most typical thing that you can find in Kibera, which is a small grocery store on the left, an M-Pesa store, which is for sending money from mobile phone to mobile phone, and a water dispenser. And I didn't even know that this construction was taking place. I just got these images a few months after that shop owner had completed it himself, and I was really happy. And he also put these colors on it and said, okay, this is the kind of facade I want to use for my shop for advertisement, which was really good to see for us. Yeah. Then another project, which is funny enough close to our workshop, but was done by a different client from Kibera, is that library, where we for the first time, we used colorful blocks, and during construction, just a few images, and yeah, that also came out quite well and was quite well received, that we can actually work with colored blocks, because people in Kenya seem to like colors on their houses a lot. This is another, well, a typical event, unfortunately, taking place in informal settlements rather frequently. Like in the past year, I was just approached for help in about 5 or 6 fires like this one, where easily hundreds of families can lose their home in an instant, so to say, because everything is built with wood. We have electricity. Excuse me. I just have to close the window. And people cook inside with open fires. People steal electricity that causes fires, and we could react a bit on this. And we collected about 25,000 euros donations, and we managed to rebuild already 11 houses out of 14 for the people who lost their homes. And that got finished. So it's a 2-story structure again, which is of course much nicer for the people to live in than the sheet metal shacks. And this is an interesting project, because on this project we also made a deal with the landlord of there are still landlords who rent out those shacks, and the landlord who owned the right to build in this area, he said, okay, he's going to collect rent, but he agreed that he will try and repay from the rent half of what we invested in that building. And after 4 years or so, when he basically has managed to pay us back, then we committed ourselves to reinvest and build another structure like this. So this is how we hope that the change can be stimulated and brought a bit from inside. So basically that donations can go a longer way. That's the idea. And people liked it immediately, these new homes. So they were rented out within no time, less than a week. And people, again, customized everything according to their needs, and are even willing to pay about 20% more rent, because they just appreciate a lot that it's just a safer and cleaner environment. So what are we going to do next? This is a project currently that currently we started. It's in collaboration with Habitat for Humanity and an Austrian NGO that supports school in rural Kenya by the Lake Victoria, Hero. And they decided to to get another manufacturing space, another factory, and to build a campus for about 400 kids that you see here. First visualization on the right-hand side, where we have a bit more space finally. And that's currently under construction, or let's say that factory is pretty much finished here now in rural Kenya, and it will have a capacity of about 300 blocks. And apparently, people in the rural areas also have a higher interest in this building material, and we hope that we can also bring an impact there. So quite looking forward now to this campus project to start as a very first project. Then another project here you see, for a change, some real architectural plans. That is going to start the day after tomorrow. We have the groundbreaking ceremony. It is a school in another informal settlement called Kawagware, which is also around Nairobi. And that school, it's about double the size of the school that I have shown you before. And it's partly financed by a Kenyan developer with the CSR part, and an American NGO who just found us over the internet. And we're quite happy to start off that construction soon. And our industry partner, Perry, has now decided to go into mass production of those molds finally, which is, of course, was a bit of up or down for the project. And luckily, they decided, okay, they want to go for it. They want to invest in an injection mold, and they sent their project manager to Cape Town, South Africa, where the production is actually going to take place. So yeah, we're going to be able to now purchase the TwistBlock molds. That's what the formwork for making the blocks is called. Yeah, at a certain standard, and it should hopefully then be possible to get these always around the world. So that's the reason why I partnered with that company. And yeah, the good thing is we also managed to get some financing from Rotary and from Perry to start off a first factory in Cape Town, in one of the informal settlements, and also to build early childhood development center there. So yeah, quite excited to go to South Africa next and to start building there. Yeah, so let's see our vision for Start Somewhere. We have actually calculated what we would be able to achieve by 2030 if we manage to set up around 25 of those factories and that have a production capacity by the end of the day of 900 blocks. So we calculated that basically around 100,000 lives of people living in informal settlements would be improved by around 4,500 houses that would be built if we use all of those blocks, and plus around 165 impact projects. So impact projects would be a school, a hospital, or similar community center. Around 11 million euro income created, not for us, but that would be for the people working on in the factories, the people working on the construction sites, and the project manager. So for them, that would be the income about 3,800 jobs is what we could create if we, let's say, reach our goal in that. And of course, yeah, as you can imagine, we are also paying in on the SDGs, UN SDGs. Yeah, like no poverty, quality education, sorry, decent work and economic growth, and so on. Yeah. Yeah, I think a big question is what can be done with an amount of the prize money that the Holcim Award provides. And let's say one of our very urgent needs is that we replace, first of all, that we replace the molds that we currently have in our workshop. Because as you see in the image, they are already breaking. It was just a first prototype series of molds that we had brought there. And the thing is, we have a lot more requests for the blocks than we can actually produce. So we're envisioning to at least scale up our production to 150 blocks per day. You can imagine around 300 to 400 blocks is one room. So yeah, basically in 3 days, 2 or 3 days, we can make a room with this production rate. And like this, I think we could finally meet, so to say, the demand that is there in Nairobi, and probably, yeah, scale up quite a bit more. And with about 12,000 euros, we could buy 150 new molds and yeah, just scale up our production. That would be pretty awesome. And I showed you this project before that we built for the victims of the fire. And currently we have 11 of those 14 rooms finished because we ran out of money and out of blocks, to be honest, as well. And there you see where it's actually located. So I guess, yeah, in Germany we have different standards of distance between buildings. I guess everywhere else too, but I think that's where you can see also the quality of the adaptiveness of those blocks, how they can basically fit into each available square meter that is so to say provided within this informal settlement, where everything is completely the opposite of Manhattan grid, let's say. Yeah. So yeah, with 8,000 we could easily build those, finish the construction of these 3 rooms and provide proper shelter and proper homes to 3 more families. Yeah. Again, a similar story to the classrooms. If we were to build these bigger, they would just be separated. Yeah. Again, and would be rented out to other families. Yeah. So yeah, finally, I just wanted to show you a bit of our partners and our team. So there on the left side, you have our team from Germany and from Kenya with the very first ever produced TwistBlocks in Kenya. And everybody's pretty proud. Amongst them, you see Professor, the third guy from the left is a professor for material science from University of Innsbruck, who just volunteered to come with me 2 weeks to make the concrete mixture for the block right, so that it's a mixture that uses very little cement and still results in a stable enough block so that we just save both on cost and carbon on it. And on the right side, you see the Kenyan team again with my 2 members from founding members of Start Somewhere Germany, Christina and Sylvia. And with the very first and actually the only wall that I ever managed to, that I ever showed how to build in Kenya. So that was in November 2019. That was my last visit to Kenya, actually. And that wall that you see there, we just built in front of our workshop. And yeah, it was, I think, a good decision, because otherwise I would have never been able to show how to build with the blocks. But that was actually enough of demonstration for all the other projects to be handled by the people themselves, which was quite a nice surprise. And yeah, maybe even through the pandemic, it's even better, because everything is done by the people themselves, and we are just, collaborating. I'm more a consultant than I'm there to develop the project, really, which is, I think, quite great. Yeah. So, well, at this point, I think we can turn on your questions, where I can see you have inserted quite a few in here. And yeah, but first of all, yeah, just again, thanks very much for the attention up to here. And yeah, let's hear.
Oliver, thank you very much for sharing that story with us. Thank you very much for your insight, and it's great to see how you started from the idea and what is built there now. And I guess we have some questions, but I was always curious about they're technical questions, but I was always curious about how you cannot go there and just start something. Start somewhere sounds like you can start something, but you need to meet people, to make friends, to build trust. Would you like to share us a little bit about this very beginning? How did you create your team or find people there, which went with all your adventure with you?
Yeah, certainly, certainly. Well, yeah, it was quite a way, let's say. So I first got there in 2011, I think. And I was there as a backpack tourist. I had traveled Kenya and Tanzania, and I was sort of stranded in Nairobi because I was out of cash pretty much, and I just had enough to pay the hostel where I stayed. And I asked the hostel owner, okay, what can I do without money in Nairobi? And she proposed me that I could go and visit the slums, so to say. Somebody would come and pick me up, and I would pay him €5 for that, and he would give me a guided tour, and €5 would be donated to some good purpose. And then this guy took me around, and he was a teacher in a school, and he showed me basically his school, and we got along quite well. He was the same age as me, and he invited me to teach a bit in the school, and that was quite nice. And I asked him how he's doing that, and he said he just made that school in order to bring a change for the kids here who cannot afford going to public school, and that he doesn't receive any salary, and that he basically, through jobs like guiding people like me or so, he is even still trying to feed the kids in school. And he also introduced me to a friend of his who also ran a school there. And I basically ended up going back also the next few days because there was somebody building a sheet metal shack. I asked whether he needed some help or so, and he said, yeah, please, you want to volunteer, come back tomorrow. And I said, okay, I come back tomorrow. I helped to finish that sheet metal shack. And then we made a volleyball net together for the school kids out of single threads. And then yeah, I somehow ended up supporting these schools there, and I did that really for about 4 or 5 years, and I traveled back there every year somehow as a student still, and I just collected funds through private networks, and then through yeah, just selling beers at student parties, as I mentioned before, and that's how I kind of made friends, there, always going back there. And then I talked with people a lot about my idea of bringing a new construction system there. I also asked the people basically what would they like. Yeah, I mean, I always thought, okay, clay might be a nice option because we like clay. It's nice for the climate. It regulates the humidity. It's beautiful. But they were like, no, that's for the people there in the rural area. That's a poor man's house. Yeah, we wanted to live in a middle class concrete house. That's the thing. It is stable, it is modern, it is clean. So I thought, okay, that's how I can actually provide a new thing for you. So I have to find a certain compromise, yeah, between because I mean a full concrete wall is not thinkable, but like these hollow elements were my solution, let's say, for the time being to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just a bit of insight, yeah. Yeah.
And I guess you stay connected and you're meanwhile quite friends with with your people there.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
There would you with this system of walls, Oliver, you also need a kind of system which is flexible when it comes to the roof. So is there something in a bigger context what you can share about the flexibility to connect to the roof?
Yeah, right. Actually, yes. Well, that's part of my PhD. I'm doing a bit of a late PhD now, but I got a fellowship for doing that by the Austrian Academy of Sciences, and well, in the Transsolar circle, you will know one of my supervisors, Stefan Holst. So he is quite aware of what I'm doing there. So developing a roof system is part of that PhD, actually. And I can just say as much as it is a system. Let's say I've developed a certain prototype system there, which kind of matches the idea of having prefabricated elements like the TwistBlocks that can also be stacked on top of each other, and that kind of structurally work a bit like the Corbel dome, which is a very ancient, a super ancient technology, but which is probably the most simple way of building a roof. I looked at various options of building roofs, and I always found we need simplicity of construction. It must be very simple. The individual elements must be able to be carried by hand. And for that, yeah, I just looked at a very ancient technology, yeah, and adapted this a bit and made it a bit industrial, yeah. So that would be a vision to develop that as a next product. I mean, currently, yeah, we still build the roofs relatively conventional, just a double layer with a gypsum board underneath and just a sheet metal on top. So it's just a ventilated roof, but I guess we can make it better. Yeah, like that.
It's not always necessary to make inventions. And sometimes the ordinary and the conventional things work well. But as you mentioned, conventional, I guess in a world where we discuss so much the emissions of cement, is there a process in your mind thinking about it, using different mixture, greener mixture, green cement? Is this something what could work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, actually, let me answer this question. And let me give you three answers to that question. So I'm very much, of course, I'd rather use carbon-free cement or similar rather yesterday than tomorrow in this technology. First of all, I think it is, in general, I have to say it's a bit of a step-by-step approach that I'm bringing there. I mean, right now, what people know there is concrete. What people have available is concrete. What people trust is basically also concrete. Yeah. So I think it was good to start off in this direction, but then once the people know this product, I think it's also can be argued that why not make a few blocks or maybe the infill part with a different material, or why not make them completely in a different material, because we trust those blocks. And yeah, we have undertaken 2 attempts already in this direction. So one is with a very interesting researcher from ETH Zurich, Oxara, a company. It's actually a man from Togo, I think. Yeah. He invented some carbon-free concrete and made some earth-based material that actually has the same viscosity and the same compressive strength as our concrete mix. Yeah, which is highly interesting. And we are just, yeah, he actually just asked me whether we should maybe try and apply for a grant together to make this happen. Yeah, but I'm just sending him some TwistBlock molds currently. Yeah, that's there on the way to him to Nyanli Landru, and yeah, we will see what comes out of it. Yeah. And then we also tried with a manufacturer from South Tyrol, Werner Schönthaler. He's doing hemp and lime. So it's maybe known as hempcrete or so. Yeah. So we already made a full block. I mean, our blocks are hollow, but we made a full block already with him out of hempcrete, so to say. Yeah. And yeah, that came out quite nice. But of course, to bring out that new product, and actually it doesn't only work with hemp, it also works with rice, and that is actually a carbon negative material, they say. Yeah, because it binds CO2. So might be an option, yeah. Yeah.
So I guess there are options what you described, but I think it is also very full of wisdom what you say. You need to think about a process. You cannot just go and do 3 steps in one. Go with 1 step, show that this block worked, and I think that was your success. They have been trusting. They learned they can build a wall. They can build second level. They can build a roof. So they have 2 levels where they had just 1 level before. I think that process is super key for a success to get people on board and then add new ideas. We have 2 questions actually which are interesting. Is it possible to bring that back to the, let me say, first world, if I may be allowed to use that word? So this word. Have you been thinking about this using your stones?
Yeah, actually, it's a question that does arise quite frequently. Yeah. And we said, okay, at the moment we just want to focus, let's say, on Kenya, on Africa, on the, let's say, global south, because that's the intention of what we actually want to do. But I figure there might be some synergies of using the blocks also, let's say, yeah, in the global north also. I think that's how you say it. Yeah. I think if, for example, there are heaps of applications. I mean, for garden walls, like for retaining walls, landscape design, you can use it a lot here. You can build your house. You can just put an insulation on the outside, no problem, I guess. Or with Transsolar, we could find out a good way how to make that, how to best approach that. Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, in a way, the fact that you can dismantle it, maybe that makes it easier to also get approval to build something, because it's just a temporary construction, so to say. Maybe for trade fairs, for things like that, it could also be used. I think there are like heaps of applications yeah, the point is we have a relatively small team at the moment, and the challenge is really a bit the budget, because we offer low-cost construction. So you can imagine you can't really ask for much planning fees or so. And maybe if there's a synergy, you know, like doing construction here that can support the construction in the global south, I mean, that would be awesome, yeah, for us. I mean, that's a bit really I think our biggest challenge at the moment, yeah, that the fees that we can charge for our really low-cost construction are not high. Yeah.
Do you need to support people by designing their buildings, or how do people design their buildings? What is necessary? What do they need to know? Can they get these blocks somewhere out of a retail shop, or at the moment, I guess you're involved, but what is the process behind, or the idea behind that the people can design their buildings easy,
I mean,
or
some knowledge there's some knowledge required. I mean, the shop owner somehow managed to do it himself, but actually there was a guy who had been working on our construction site. So we who was actually helping him to build this the shop. You remember these 3 small shops with colors? Yeah. And we are trying to train people as many as possible. Like when we have a construction site like the school, we try to bring in some of the so-called fundis. They're like the craftsmen there, and we try to just transfer the skills, so to say. I mean, we have a building manual as well that is available in the workshop. So there's a manual that can always be shared when purchasing the blocks. So it's like IKEA, more or less, yeah. Something where every step is illustrated. And for architects, also I have designed a planning software, so to say, or let's say a planning algorithm. I don't want to say a software, but it's an algorithm within Grasshopper, Rhino and Grasshopper. I guess since we have, I don't need to explain what that is in this audience. But yeah, so basically you can just draw the center line of the wall, and it will automatically populate your wall with twist blocks, and you can cut out windows, and it solves automatically intersections of T junctions and X junctions, and you can just export the plans as an isometric view of each single row. So that's actually how I did it with the building of the school. Then I had an isometric view of all the rows of the blocks, and I was sitting there with a video call and just making my checks on the plan that it was built correctly. Yeah. Or I told him, no, this block comes first, then this block comes on top of this. So yeah, I mean, the vision would be also maybe to have a software where people can just do this on their smartphone, so to say, and maybe just when I get questions so often, how much is a house? Yeah, this is the very typical question I get by email. How much is a house, or how much is one school? I know you are planners as well, so that is not an easy answer to give. So if we had a planning software where people could just work on their smartphone and maybe walk around the perimeter and place a window here and make a wall there, and that would automatically, because the software automatically calculates how much it will cost you. Actually, that would be nice. Yeah, it's another vision, another wish on the wish list, let's say.
Actually, I can imagine this way easier than the tough work what you have done with your team, building a workshop and doing things in reality, in the real world. But the software, I think, is something we can all imagine, and the iPhone idea and the smartphone, not the iPhone, the smartphone idea is probably the way which we see in a few years from you. We had a question in the chat which was about the disassembly. So even we like to see buildings built. The question was, do you have a movie about that something is disassembled and how that works? And you'd like
Nice
probably
question,
to say
actually.
something about that?
Also, let's say it's a good idea, which implies that no, we don't have it yet, because our buildings have not been dismantled yet. And I have to say there's a certain constraint still. So we cannot dismantle 100% of the building, because especially on two-story buildings, we still need some reinforcement inside. So there are still some steel concrete columns cast inside the blocks, using the blocks as permanent formwork. So I mean, it's discrete columns inside, but so you can still use about 80% of the blocks, but the blocks that frame the columns have to be destroyed, of course, when you take down the building. The same goes for the ring beam on top, which is yeah. I mean, on single-story structures, also depending on the earthquake zone, of course. On single-story structures, it's thinkable that we can leave out the columns, but the ring beam we will always need, and that is currently also done cast in steel concrete, and that ring beam will also have to be destroyed. So yeah, but it would be still nice to do a video like that. I think it would be a good exercise. Thanks for this idea. Yeah.
Oliver, thank you very much for your insight. I hope that I didn't miss one of the biggest question, and if so, please forgive me. One last comment from my side. I know that you also suggested this amazing project to holcim Africa, and you somehow didn't make it to the ceiling. You have not been recognized. So at the end, I'm quite happy that through this detour, I think that I'm speaking for the entire Atlassian team. We could support you and get support and money to where it really matters and where it makes a difference. So in this context, I'm very happy that we could do that, and we are very happy for your inspiring insight and your continuous, let me say, commitment to such an amazing project. I think, let me close with this. Thank you very much again, giving us the time. And I think that should give the end to this presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you for the audience joining us here. We wish you good luck, Oliver, and your entire team.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Wolfgang, and thanks a lot again for that generous donation. And yeah, I feel really humbled that so many people joined in and showed interest. And wow, there's so many nice comments here coming up in the chat. So I can just say it's very encouraging, and I feel very humbled on behalf of my whole team. Thanks a lot. Cool.
Thank you very much, and greetings to wherever our audience has been in the world. I already mentioned east to west to Europe. So goodbye, and thank you very much.
Cool. Bye bye.